Okay guys, welcome back to another freezing cold morning in Beijing. We're pagoda bagging today. I'm going to attempt to visit 10 pagodas in one day. It's quite a lot and they're quite spread out obviously. Anyway, let's try. The first one is just over there and it's a beauty. Let's go. So this is a Zheshou temple pagoda. It's Ming Dynasty. It was built in 1576. Obviously, it used to be part of a much larger temple complex, which is long gone now. So it's just inside this park, quite a lovely park. I'm here early morning, obviously, so it's full of people doing Tai Chi and dancing and doing all the things that older people do in China. It's beautifully decorated. You can see the figures on either side of the doors there. They like had a wooden frame inside them and the plaster that's on them has all come off. Looks kind of creepy. It's actually almost a copy of the Tianning Temple Pagoda, also here in Beijing, which is much older and bigger. It's the largest in Beijing. We're visiting that a little bit later in the video, I think. Anyway, let's keep moving. Okay, so the next pagoda is a really unusual one, and it's located inside the Beijing Stone Carving Museum, which is a really cool place. If you've got an hour or so to kill in Beijing, it's a lovely place to visit, really. So this pagoda is also Ming Dynasty. It's called the Zhenjue Diamond Throne Pagoda. It's pretty unusual. There are not many pagodas of this style anywhere in China. So pagodas originate in India. There are many different types of pagodas, obviously. This one, it is unusual. There are obviously on the top, there are 5 separate pagodas. It's called in some places. Sometimes people call it the 5 pagoda, which is quite a cool name. It is an interesting one. The story goes that during the early 1400s, an Indian monk arrived in the capital and presented a model of a diamond throne pagoda. And a few decades later, this pagoda was built based on that model. Elaborately decorated, each layer of the pagoda is covered in carvings, including 1,561 Buddha statues. The outdoor museum the pagoda sits in is also a lovely place to explore. Full of stonework from throughout Chinese history, you can learn a lot in this place. There's just a little bit of snow in the air in Beijing now. Beautiful place. I'd recommend coming to this one. Not only for the pagoda, but actually all the stuff around in the museum itself. It's really interesting. Right, let's keep moving. I'm a bit worried about time. I might have bitten off more than I can chew here, to be honest. There's only so many hours in a day. Let's go. And so to the Summer Palace and the beautiful Duobao glazed pagoda. So it was built in 1751. That's during the Qing dynasty, during the reign of the Emperor Qianlong. And it was built for the Empress Dowager's 60th birthday. The complex that the pagoda sits in was actually burnt down in 1860 by Allied forces, the British and the French, obviously. The pagoda is basically the only thing that survives, and a few big stone relics, but all the buildings obviously long gone. It's beautiful, really beautiful. Where I live in China, around in Shanxi, we don't really have these kind of ornate glazed tile pagodas. A bit more old school in Shanxi, you know. They're very beautiful though. The most famous glazed pagoda, of course, was the porcelain tower in Nanjing, which was regarded as a wonder of the world. It was destroyed, unfortunately, during the Taiping Rebellion. But anyway, there's still bits of that. If you go to the Nanjing History Museum, there are still parts of it in there, and it's spectacular, really spectacular. Okay, we're back in central Beijing. after our brief trip to the Summer Palace, and we're just about to come to what is the tallest and oldest pagoda in central Beijing. That's the Tianning Temple Pagoda. It's in like a housing estate by the looks of things. Kind of weird. So this pagoda was built in 1119, which makes it Liao Dynasty. Stood here for a long time then, you know. The Liao Dynasty was one of the first to put their capital here in Beijing. It's pretty immense, isn't it? It's 57 meters high. It's a beautiful piece of architecture. As you can see from the one I went to this morning, the Susho Pagoda, the style is incredibly similar. The tallest and oldest of Beijing's pagodas is surprisingly a very quiet, peaceful place. The closer you get, the more detail you see. It is a true work of art that has stood and survived throughout multiple dynastic changes, wars and periods of turmoil. A powerful symbol of China's capital city. It's a fantastic building. This type of pagoda, you only really find them in very northern China. The Liao Dynasty was a northern dynasty. So even in areas like where I live in Shanxi and stuff, there's nothing like this anywhere. Quite spectacular. Anyway, it's time to move on. Next. Okay, our next one is a really unusual one because it is not in a Buddhist temple. It's actually in a Taoist temple. The Luogong Pagoda of the White Cloud Temple was built in the early 1700s. Taoist pagodas are very uncommon, as burying human remains is not something associated with Taoism, which historically focuses more on the path to immortality. The bagua symbols carved on the pagoda make it quite unique amongst China's many pagodas, a special place. Right, this is the Miaoying Temple, and the pagoda here is something of a landmark in Beijing. It's old. It was built in the Yuan dynasty under the reign of Kublai Khan. It was finished in 1279, and it's absolutely massive. Let's go. That is Arniko, a Nepalese architect who Kublai Khan hired to design and build the pagoda. This is the tallest and oldest Tibetan-style pagoda anywhere. The huge body of the pagoda is over 50 meters tall, and it is quite tightly fit into the temple, so finding a place to get a full look at it is not that easy. When Kublai Khan declared the start of the Yuan dynasty, this was one of the first projects and has stood ever since. So it's a Tibetan Buddhist style pagoda. Often get called Dagobahs. Dagobah systems, where Yoda lives. Anyway, why were the Mongols building Tibetan Buddhist pagodas? The Mongols were incredibly tolerant of religions, particularly Kublai Khan, and they actually adopted Tibetan Buddhism as basically as their state religion. So all across the Mongol world, even today, there are Tibetan-style temples. Marco Polo will have seen that pagoda, if he actually came here. Maybe he was talking bollocks, who knows? Okay, the next one's a very short walk away. How am I doing here? Is that 6, 7? Who knows? Anyway, the sun is very rapidly going down, unfortunately. So this pagoda was built for a Zen master called Xingxiu from the Jin dynasty, which is like the 1100s, but it's been rebuilt. It was rebuilt in the Qing dynasty. The original pagoda is encased inside the Qing dynasty pagoda we see today. Set inside a tiny courtyard just off a busy road, this place has a real secret feel to it, and is not on many people's Beijing's must-see list. Put it on yours though, it's a nice bit of peace in a busy part of the city. I like this one a lot. Okay, our last stop is in Beijing Park, about 10 minutes before it's dark, I think. So I think we've just got enough time to get up the hill to the very famous White Pagoda in Beijing Park. So it's been a long day, this. Harder work than I thought it was going to be. Maybe a bit off more than I could chew, I think. And also, I said 10 at the beginning of the video. I think this is 8. Fail. Not an epic fail, but a fail. Anyway, seen some pretty cool places today. Beijing is full of amazing places, you know. So this one was built in 1651 during the Qing dynasty. It's another Tibetan style pagoda right up on top of the hill in the middle of Beijing Park. Wherever you are, especially like in the Forbidden City, it's a very visible thing. It's a really important symbol of Beijing. This is a site that almost anyone visiting Beijing will see. Beihai Park sits just next to the Forbidden City, so after visiting that, pop over the road and come here. A true Beijing landmark. But wait, there's more. So I know you did 8 pagodas there, so to try to make it up to you, one last little treat on this video. On my way there now, I'm looking forward to it. I've actually seen this before, and it's magnificent. It's got my torch on so you can see a little bit. This is another 9 dragon wall. It's the only one in the country that has the dragons on both sides, and it's one of only 3, the other being in the Forbidden City, which you saw in the previous video, and the one in Datong. It's so cool. These are just amongst my favourite things in China, these big glazed screen walls. Okay, so we're going to finish the video here today. Hope you enjoyed it. It's been a long day out. After this, I'm going to be heading south along the route of the Grand Canal down to Hangzhou. It's going to take me a month or so, I think. So stay tuned for the next video. All the best, take care, and stay safe. Bye-bye.